Coming up, the battle lines are drawn to save some of the last remaining bushland in the Springfield area. The Save Woogaroo Forest group is making a last-ditch effort to save the bushland. Already there's been global support from over 300 scientists and experts, and more than 21,500 people have signed a petition. One of the group's supporters is BirdLife Australia Urban Birds Program Coordinator, Dr Christina Zdenek. It's Thursday, August 6, 2026, and I'm Allan Roebuck. Welcome to Ipswich Today. This podcast acknowledges traditional owners and their connection to lands and waters we share. Ipswich Today is supported by Kinetics, people-powered web hosting trusted by Australian businesses since 1999. The battle to preserve what is locally known as Woogaroo Forest, that large parcel of land sandwiched between Brookwater and Springfield, is ongoing. Woogaroo Forest is not an official place name, as the area is privately owned and has been earmarked for residential development for about 30 years. This remaining bushland, though, has brought into sharp focus the preservation of the bushland itself and wildlife. It is a battle royale, and where it ends is still not resolved. To talk about the grassroots movement to keep it as bushland is Dr Christina Zdenek, Urban BirdLife Program Coordinator with BirdLife Australia. Thanks for speaking with Ipswich Today, Christina.
Thanks for having me.
When and why did you become involved with the Save Woogaroo Forest group?
Well, it was over a year and a half ago that I became aware of the issue and immediately began helping where I could, because it's only 10 kilometers from where I live. But more importantly, once I had visited the forest, I quickly realized that this is a very intact ecosystem. It's not just some derelict land with, a few scattered invasive trees or whatnot. This is a fabulous example of many different types of ecosystems within the Southeast Queensland area. And then the more I began to learn about the species that have been found there, the more I realized, wow, this is a serious battle that we cannot give up on because there is too much at stake here.
Can you go into any more detail about the animals and species that are in that area? Well,
it has over 1,000 species. So this includes things like the critically endangered lowland rainforest. So also community types as well, not just species, and rare Woogaroo vine scrub. We've got endangered plants. There's one called Coleus habraphilus. And, there's things like powerful owls, like Australia's largest owl. There's 2 breeding pairs in there. And so not just the old growth trees that sustain multiple generations over time, but also they hunt in there as well. So they need a hunting ground, not just their breeding grounds. There's iconic species. There's the echidna, the platypus, and the frilled lizard. It's gone from icon to afterthought, and yet this is the southernmost population of this iconic lizard, the frilled lizard. It's been confirmed there by the developer's own environmental reports. So there's just awesome species in there.
Let's talk about the development then. There's a long history of development in the Springfield area, starting about 1992, when it was former forestry land, or I think that the majority of it was. Are you aware of the timeline of what's happened since then?
Well, yes, to a degree. So in 1997, there was put forward what's called the Springfield Structure Plan. And unfortunately, this plan enables this area to just bypass any laws thereafter. So the developers were very legally smart back then. But what it means is what we're using to guide our development in modern day 2026 is literally 30-year-old plans. That was before the koala became endangered, before we had death by 1,000 cuts of this entire Southeast Queensland area and many of these other species becoming threatened with extinction. If it wasn't so serious, it would be laughable that we are being guided by 30-year-old legislation that was put forward. And it needs updating. They need need to scrap that. And it very well can be. It just takes political will.
You've mentioned how powerful that law was when it was made at the time. And since then, there's been a lot of talk about the EPBC Act, which is the Environmental Protection and Biodiversity Act at a federal level. What is this act designed to do? And do you think it can help save that area?
Yes, this act was designed and recently updated, mind you, to prevent species from going extinct. And so there's a series of criteria that species can, if they've satisfied these criteria, then they can be listed at some level of threat. And the higher you go up in these criteria, the worse off the species is, the closer they are to extinction. So you've got near threatened, vulnerable, endangered, critically endangered, then extinct, right? And so what it's meant to do is prevent developments and impacts that would put these endangered species closer to extinction. Now, this hasn't really been successfully enacted, actually, that many times. And this is why it needed a whole completely new revamping, which happened, 6 months ago or something like that. But unfortunately, they, of course, are using the old version to assess this current application because they happened to submit it, a matter of months before that renewal came in. So they're doing the dodgy every way they possibly can. So the new act it's meant to include cumulative effects, right? So not just the impact of one development, like looking at Woogaroo, there's 4 different parcels of land within this corridor. They're meant to look at all of the developments in unison and not just one at a time, which is what historically has been done and which they will continue to do for, unfortunately, this development application.
Now, I think I've got this next bit right. The Woogaroo Forest Group, a group of volunteers and of which you're part of, I believe there's been an appeal to the Federal Environment Minister to protect the remaining bushland, specifically looking at Springview Village 2 and 3. Do you know if a decision is imminent?
Yes, it is absolutely imminent. The minister now has less than 40 days. It'd be something around 30. We're trying to confirm exactly when that is, but Murray Watt, the federal environment minister, will decide within the next month or so whether Woogaroo Forest will be destroyed or not. And so the call to action for anyone who disagrees with the destruction of this forest, they can go onto our website, savewoogarooforest.com.au. And basically, the call to action is to ring Murray Watt's office and tell him to enact the EPBC Act, which would save the endangered species in this area.
It's a big call to make. How do you rate the chances of a decision to stop further development?
Well, look, I'm not saying we should stop further development. Let's be clear here.
This area in particular. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So this is not a smart development. They literally, for anyone who's not aware, they plan to chop the top 14 meters off the top of pretty steep hills. I've been right through there. And then fill the valleys with it. You've got 2 creeks surrounding it. And anyone in this area with these types of very erodible soils, mind you, and the council themselves say that severe works is bound to cause erosion, right? It's not going to be good for the environment. It's going to clog up the creeks, let alone all the vegetation removal and what that does for our species. But, the platypus wouldn't have any chance in this area. And it's not a smart development too, because there are many options in the Ipswich City area, in fact, closer to train stations that have already been cleared. And in fact, developers have been land banking and mowing for over 9 years. So why not build quicker homes, solve the housing crisis on areas that have already been cleared rather than do massive works, destroying huge forests, massive trees? Like, this is bound to be very expensive, but they know they're going to get over $1 million for each micro little land and house package of 350 square meters. But that's not going to help the housing crisis for people who need it. We need to build smartly, and this development by Stockland Cherish and Springfield City Group is not a smart development.
let's speculate ahead that 30 or 40 days and the decision comes down to put a stop to this particular development. Do you know if developers would have any further avenues of appeal?
Look, there is a very complex process, and it's not completely transparent to us, to be honest. I think it's purposely very convoluted. There's various things that the Ipswich City Council can do to put various roadblocks in place. There are various conditions that the state can put in. What the developers can do is once any of these conditions are put upon them, then they're going to obviously look at the finances, right? They're in it for the money. They're estimated to make over $400 million from the development. They're going to look at their bottom line. Is it going to be tenable to continue forward? And if it's not, then they will look to sell the land. And then we would promote the council combined with the state, possibly federal, to pitch in money and possibly philanthropists to purchase the land and turn it into a gem of the Springfield area to lure ecotourism and all the sustainable sort of economics that we're trying to promote in the area.
We'll leave it there. Dr Christina Zdenek, thank you so much for speaking with Ipswich Today.
Thanks for having me.
And that is it for this episode. A reminder, you will find handy links in the show notes. Ipswich Today is supported by Kinetics, people-powered web hosting trusted by Australian businesses since 1999. This podcast is also listener-supported. Please make a once-only gift or regular donation to help keep it online. Visit ipswichtoday.com.au and click Donate. Follow and stream where you get podcasts, including the iHeart app, or play Ipswich Today on smart speakers. This is Allan Roebuck. Thank you for listening. Enjoying Ipswich Today? Please share the love on your socials.